Online safety has become a major concern for parents. The National Center for Child Protection has released a report raising the alarm around children and cell phone technology. According to the study, some of the worrying trends to emerge include children being exposed to predators and pornography. For more on this, I'm joined by Danie Van Loggerenberg, who is the Managing Director of the National Center for Child Protection. A very good afternoon to you, Danie. Thank you very much for your time. You know, this morning, my little 6-year-old was talking about his wishes for Santa. And among them, he wants 5 things, and among them is a cell phone. And I laughed him off. But when I read this morning that the average age of first exposure to pornography is 7-year-old, then it was no longer a laughing matter, certainly not for me.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for the opportunity to have a conversation with you about this very, very serious topic. You're 100% correct. And I think most children had a wish list to send to Santa that included some form of device, whether it be a cell phone, a tablet, or some other form of device that has access to the internet. And unfortunately, its devices are not safe.
I mean, according to this research, 64% of children have access to a smartphone or tablet by the age of 10. And no 10-year-old, or less even, would buy themselves a cell phone, a smartphone, certainly.
Well, that exactly is the concern that we've got, is that the people that buy these devices, obviously parents, and originally we all, I'm a parent myself, thought, you know what, this is what they ask for, so let's give them that. Everybody else has that. Now the concern is we don't realize the dangers they get into, the dangers that lurk on the web, because when we grew up, we did not have to encounter these dangers. We had different dangers that our parents warned us against and was concerned about and worried about. So now you've got these youngsters, they've got cell phones, as you rightfully said, they can't buy these phones for themselves. They're not able to RICA them, so they can't. And now parents, thinking they're doing a good thing, are giving these devices. And the fancier the device, the better the device, the more pricey the device, the happier the child is. But unfortunately, at the same time, that also means bigger memory, more space, more apps, and that just means more danger.
Do you think, parents would continue to buy these devices if they know what has been revealed by this study? 21% watch pornography every day. 59% watch pornography regularly. Close to 5.2 million children have also seen sexual images on a device. 72% of children have taken nude pictures or videos of themselves.
That is such a good and important question to ask, because that is one of the things I think I'm most concerned of, is the fact that even when we share these things, a lot of parents tell me, but not my child. Like they kind of think that their child is the exception to the rule. The concern is not necessarily your own child. And I'm going to explain that. So when you've got a child at home, you look at them a certain way, you teach them certain things, and you guard them in a certain way. But then they go to school, and then they've got interaction with other children that might not be growing up in such a strict or conservative household. And that's concerning, because now your child that's never heard of these things cannot go home to you and have that conversation with you. So you continuously as a parent think, but if they've got a proper device, they're going to be okay. They can use it for schoolwork. They can use it to search for certain information or do research without knowing of these dangers. So I think it's so important that parents realize that there's these dangers, realize that it takes one wrong friend in the classroom to get your child hooked to something like pornography. And I work at schools. That's my strong point. That's my specialist field, is going to schools, interacting with children. And to see a 12-year-old in front of you crying, saying, "Sir, I don't want to watch porn daily anymore. I don't know how to stop, but I can't tell my parents." That is very, very sad to see and sad to hear.
Is there help, though, out there that's available for such children as the one you've just mentioned? In other words, can they go somewhere, or can their parents access some kind of help? And we're talking here about just what we've just mentioned, where someone or a child has gotten addicted. We're not even talking about preventative and other measures. Is there help for them?
Yes, there is. And I think if as soon as somebody realizes something is wrong, whether it's your child or a friend of yours child or a family member's child, is to, as soon as possible, make contact with an organization. There are many organizations out there. You can make contact with us. You can make contact with many of the others. Make contact with us. Make contact with one of the others and say, "Listen, I need urgent assistance." The sooner we have these conversations and we can explain to both the parents and the child the dangers of being addicted to something like pornography or just addiction in many other ways as well, the sooner we can help them and the less damage there already is. The longer it goes on, the more difficult it is to get them off of that addiction, like any other addiction. So I think as soon as you realize that, yes, please make contact. We are easy to find, and you can send us an email. You can send us a WhatsApp message. You can just make contact with us and say, "Listen, I need urgent intervention." We'll get the necessary details from you. And our services are free of charge. We don't charge for our services. We are there to make sure that children are okay and safe. And so there's no concern about what would the cost be, what would the long-term this or that be. We will make sure that your child is okay, that your child is safe, but also teach you how to guard against that happening again in future, because I think that's very important.
Let's talk a bit about prevention, because what we are talking about now was how to help those who have become addicted with, of course, the disastrous consequences that go with that. I know for a fact that there are countries or jurisdictions that have decided to ban access to certain services for children under certain ages. I don't know if you know whether, in fact, that has acted as a deterrent, or at the very least has sort of lessened the problem somehow.
Well, I'm going to give you my opinion and our organization's opinion on that. So Australia, for example, is one of those countries that have come out and they've banned social media for all children under a certain age. And that sounds amazing, but let's quickly take a step back. It's illegal to have alcohol under the age of 18. Now, I don't know about you. My friends started drinking when we were 14 years old. So that had zero impact on that. Smoking is illegal for anyone under the age of 18. Smoking happens. Vapes at schools. I've got schools phoning me about grade ones pitching up at schools with vapes. So that sounds great, but I do think it would be counterproductive, because then it becomes illegal and then kids are going to do it to be funny. And then we're actually going to invite more kids, because it's illegal, to go and search and find certain things on the internet and so forth. But then also, once a child does something, they will struggle to ask for assistance because what they've done is illegal. And the trouble they will get into is so much more. So as much as I have always loved the idea that, hey, let's just take it completely away, I do think we're going to create a bigger problem. My suggestion, however, would be to have more educational conversations and also to empower parents to have conversations with their children, and also educate them on the reasons why children are doing some of the things that they are doing. We find that parents have stopped parenting. So you've got parents that at home, they've got kids with them and then they're on their phone all the time. They're either on some app like Facebook or so forth. Is to educate parents that their kids mirror their behavior. And because the kids see their parents continuously on their phones, our kids are continuously on their phones. If you think that the average South African child is on a phone more than 9 hours per day, I mean, really, what can you do on a phone for more than 9 hours per day? So at least some of that time is used to do things that are unsafe, unhealthy, and so forth. So I'd much rather have a conversation with parents, schools, etc., where we can say, okay, this is a problem. If we ban it, this is the bigger problem that we create, or we can have a conversation around these things and then also have hefty penalties when people contravene that. For example, if we find a 60-year-old man that's been exposing himself to youngsters and also asking those youngsters for nudes and things, etc., and so forth, there should be harsh sentences and public sentences so that they can see that there is help on the other side. There's been so many arrests over the last few weeks of pedophile rings, etc. But it's small little articles. It needs to be bigger. These kids need to know help is available, and parents need to know that this is real. And then I think we can have a proper conversation on how to keep our kids safe and what to do. And then they can use that. I mean, not every child that grows up in a household with alcohol available starts drinking. And I think cell phones, we need to treat them in the same way. Because like I said, my main concern, especially, for example, in Australia, and the feedback we're getting from there at the moment is not as amazing as they try and sell it to be, is that the kids are now, because it's illegal, we've got more children trying to interact and to do funny and strange things than what the idea behind the reason for the banning of social media underage was intended for.
Let's take you talking about parents having to have conversations with their kids. Those of us like you who started drinking very early and perhaps haven't stopped, had conversations with our parents, grandparents in the case of some of us, but we continued to drink.
So, and I just want to share, my friend started drinking at 14. I'm a teetotaler since birth. I had an alcoholic uncle, and that was my kind of picture of don't go there. I think what's important is, and I hear you, and you're 100% correct, but we need to choose a side, unfortunately. And I'm sure as you've grown older, and a lot of my friends, as they've grown older, drink differently. In the beginning, it's funny because it's illegal, it's wrong, and so forth. Then in the early 20s, it was just completely out of control. But now, as they grow older and they become parents themselves, they look at it differently, they act around it differently, and they speak about it differently. And I think those conversations are so important. So yes, you're always going to have the exceptions to the rule, unfortunately. You're always going to have somebody, I mean, I've spoken at a school and I've asked the kids, for example, who's on a certain app or who plays a certain game, and I explain to them the dangers, and then I ask them, once I leave, who will still continue this afternoon on the same app or the same game? And a big percentage of kids still say, you know what, you've now told us the scary side, but we still do it. And you're always going to have that. But there's also kids that I receive messages from parents a week or two after I've been to a school, where parents let me know that their kids came back home that afternoon and said, Mom, Dad, here's my phone. Please assist me into making a few changes, deleting a few things, and so forth. So it is, unfortunately, it's going to be an either or. There's not one of the solutions will be perfect, unfortunately. But I do think the reason the reason we think the way we think is because we've seen that once it's illegal, and we've seen in Australia what's happening, there's unfortunately a bigger drive towards that, specifically because the kids have had access to that all along. I think it's a different thing if we can ban it and no kid has ever been on a TikTok or a Facebook or Instagram. But unfortunately, they're already using that. And some of them already have thousands and thousands of followers. And I'd rather think if we can get them to be safer, they would look at it differently and have conversation with parents than trying to ban it and then they illegally continue under false names, false avatars, false AIs, and the dangers that then come with that.
predatory strangers, or the pedophile rings, as you call them. How do we cushion children or protect these children from such?
I think what's very important is if we have these conversations and we open them up, that we allow our children, especially the children that have made a mistake or two, to have the freedom to communicate about that. Once I meet with a school principal and the school principal tells me, don't worry, in our school, we don't have this problem at all. I'm always very concerned with that sentence, because once you as a household or as a school take the stance that you don't have anything happening in-house, kids cannot come to you and say, listen, this is happening to me, because you've already given them a picture that nothing is happening. So I think we need to open those conversations. I worked at a school one day, a primary school, and the school specifically asked me to not speak about cell phone safety, sexting, and nudes. And for 44 of my 45 minutes, I adhered to what they asked for. And in the last minute, I turned to the school counselor and I said, I'm so sorry. And I just said one sentence. I said, kids, if any one of you has ever received a request from somebody online for a photograph of yourself that is, it was Afrikaans school, so I'm trying my best to think in English, but it was an unsafe photo, a photo that you would not really share with anyone, please stay behind. And about 70 kids stayed behind. And one of the girls shared with us, she's a 12-year-old, that she was at that moment in a relationship with a 55-year-old man. That 55-year-old man had a fake profile and faked being 15 years old. That's the way they started their conversation. With time, he built trust. And with that trust, he was able to say, I'm no longer 15, I'm actually 18, 21, and he started jumping the ages. Once she realized she was in trouble, she shared with him that she would no longer like to share or receive any photos or videos. He then said to her, if she stops, she's the love of his life, he would commit suicide, which obviously in the world of a 12-year-old is a completely different sentence to hear than when myself or you hear that same sentence. And that's the kind of warfare our children get involved in. But because of that girl's bravery to step forward and say, this is happening, we were able to not only work out who this gentleman is, but also some of the other girls in the same school that he's been targeting. So if we do not open the conversations and we do not be honest, and we're not honest and say this is happening, then unfortunately, we will have a situation where we're going to be completely lost and we're going to lose our children. Similar case, I worked in Soweto. A girl was 13 years old, still in primary school. She sent a gentleman nude. She was not sure how old he was. She was so scared to tell her mom that she then, on his threats of exposing her and sharing her photos, she met with him, and he then unfortunately raped her. And that carried on for quite a while until one day she said, enough is enough. She made contact with us and we had to share with her mom that she unfortunately made some bad choices. Once the kids know that this is a possibility and this is happening, they can have a conversation about it. As long as we tell them this is not happening, they think that they are one out of a million kids that this is happening to, and they don't share that information with anyone. That's how we get to the kids. It is by opening these conversations and saying, this is happening. If it's happened to you, you've done nothing wrong. Even if you've made mistakes, you've done nothing wrong. Let's now help you. Because that creates opportunity for these kids to come out and say, listen, I'm in trouble and I need your assistance.
That's exactly where I was going to take the conversation, but I'm glad, Danie, that you took us there, before I could even prompt you, because indeed there is also the problem of children's reactions to when the parents start, acting even before they actually see something wrong, but you then get children getting upset or reacting in manners or ways that parents kind of cannot even handle. But of course, you do also have situations where parents are indeed reluctant to parent. But thank you for your time and insights. Indeed, we should open these conversations.